The memo about the white shirt.
You missed what, James?
The memo about the white shirts.
Oh, yeah, you did, didn't you?
It doesn't matter as long as we represent there. I still like to get a gray one.
You still want a gray one?
Yeah.
I want a blue one, but I don't know how the blue is going to show up.
That might not.
Yeah, with the blue there.
Change the.
If you get a certain color blue.
Yeah.
Like maybe baby blue.
Yeah, because I'm a blue person. You know, I love blue. So I'm going to have to work on that. And you like gray, huh, James?
Yeah, well, you know, why not have a Greyhound one?
Hey, that works for me. That works for you.
Disagree with that. Yes. Nobody can agree with anything related to a Greyhound.
There you go.
Disagree, I mean.
What year did you come out, Onyx?
94.
Oh, poor little baby.
Why you say that? We was the state champions.
I'm saying youngster. I'm just saying you're a youngster. That's all.
Oh, I was about to say, you know, we be proud. We be proud.
Because I have the ring from 94. Because I was serving as the president of the Alumni Association. So when they wanted they gave me the ring. So
yes,
that was an amazing year.
It really was.
I can remember it seemed like all the Portsmouth was following that team.
Mm-hmm.
Because
it was
Go ahead.
Yeah, it was the magic that I felt like I heard about when I was a little girl, and my grandmother always told me I had to go to Norcom, and it always sounded so magical. So when I was there, I was like, I'm so glad I listened.
You know, I wish we could instill that magic into the young folks today, you know?
Yes.
He's doing it up now on the radio.
Are we on?
He's getting there. I heard. He's doing the introduction.
Yeah, we're on. All right. Okay, we're good.
Okay. All right. Good morning, everyone. Every day we rise is a great day to be alive. Welcome to the Seven Cities Forums of Hampton Roads presents Portsmouth Coffee Talk. Good morning, hosts.
Good morning, James. I have my cup over here.
Leah Stitt and the Colonel.
Yeah, good morning, Slim and Leah.
Good morning. Good morning, guys. Good morning, Onyx.
Good morning.
We're here this morning with a special guest, Lakeisha. Not many people know that, do they?
I didn't know it. I didn't know it.
Onyx is her brand.
Okay.
She's been doing a lot to build that brand. Well, by the way, first of all, our special guest this morning is Onyx Hicks. And she's a 1994 graduate of IC Norcom. She attended Burlington College, Cornell University, Villanova University, Old Dominion University. And she wears a lot of hats. She doesn't have one on today, but she wears a lot of hats as the Portsmouth NAACP Vice President, motivational speaker, author, co-host, social activist, media personality, executive, and an advocate. So she wears a lot of hats. So we welcome Onyx here. And Onyx, good morning.
Good morning. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for getting up and being our guest this morning. And you know, you've been doing a lot to build your brand, the Onyx brand. But we're going to talk about that. But before we get into that, I want to start out with this, because when we had an interview before, we talked about, you know, you growing up in London Oaks and how, even though, you know, it might have been sort of difficult at times, but there were some people out there that really influenced and helped you that were not all the typical people that you would think that would be your influencers. But they were really helpful in helping you and keeping you out of harm's way. But I'm bringing that up to talk about because we've been talking about the crime in the city of Portsmouth. And just yesterday, we had a shooting out there in London Oaks. And I wanted for you to start out, you know, talking about, you know, you coming up there in London Oaks and how you feel about this increase in violence we have in the city of Portsmouth. And what do you think, how do you think we should be approaching this?
Okay, thank you. So the increasing violence enforcement is heartbreaking and it's gut wrenching. It is, I would never sit up here and act like we didn't always have a issue of violence enforcement, because we did. As you stated, I grew up in London Oaks, so it's something that I saw often. But the thing that we are missing today, and that we had back then, was community. We don't have community. As you talked about, there were people that protected me and looked out for me and protected a lot of people in the community. And they were some of the people that they would warn you away from. Some of the guys that you may have thought people told us that were bad guys, or that we should stay away from. But for whatever reason, they saw something in me and they made sure that I didn't get in trouble. They made sure I went to school. They didn't allow other guys to date me. They would send me in the house when things would get dangerous. I thought that they didn't even like me at one point, because they wouldn't say things to other kids. They will always send me away and say, no, you have something to do. You're going to be somebody. You need to go in the house. And we don't have that now. We don't have those guys or those women. And it was some women too that were older than us, that regardless of what they were into, they didn't want that life for us. They were willing to reach back. They were willing to talk to you. They were willing to inspire you and give you their information. A lot of times the people that can reach back to the community today, they don't do it. And those that do it, they don't usually have the backing that they need to have. I work with a lot of grassroots activists and boots on the ground activists. I was up until 1:00 a.m. Coming up with plans and strategies and meetings that we actually have later on today to address some of the violence. Because at this point, we're just tired of asking the government to step in. We're tired of asking city council to back us. We're tired of asking our police chiefs to do something. We're just tired. And we have to be the people that we say that we have to be the change that we need. We have to be who we say we need. And that's just what has to happen. Those of us that have been in this environment, those of us that have survived it, those of us that know how to talk to the inner city and the kids, we need to step up and we need to do what we need to do. Because honestly, it doesn't work to have outsiders come in, because we all know Portsmouth is not friendly to outsiders. You can't have someone that they don't know come and speak to them. You can't have someone that just because they're Black, talk to them if they don't respect their struggle, if they don't respect where they came from, if they think that they're inauthentic, it's not going to work. So we need all of the authentic people to stand up, and we just need support. And we need to reopen community centers. We don't have community centers. I'm from London Oaks. It looks like a prison yard out there. We had a pool, we had playgrounds, we had things to keep us occupied. We had places to go. We had safe havens. We don't have that. When I visited the prison to do work there, and I went out London Oaks one day, I was thinking I would never let my child play here, because they were caged in like animals, and concrete things for kids to play on, and a pool that's filled with concrete. It was just insane.
Yeah, and I think, and you talk about, there's a lot of people on the ground that's been working the whole time. I think you referred to the administration and some of our leaders looking at the fact that it might take 6 weeks. I mean, 6 months in order to put them together from their level. But you know, you got to ask the question: where was everybody 6 months ago, when or 2 years ago, when all this was going on? So, but it has been people on the ground working. It hasn't been as publicized, but you know, it's things that we're going to have to do now, rather than complaining or sitting back waiting on that 6-month plan. It's things that we can do now. And I'll say this one thing about London Oaks, or any of those communities like that. It just has to happen near that area, and London is tagged as the area. It could be one street over, but it looks like it's happening in London Oaks, and a lot of times some of the communities don't get the fair tag.
And make no mistake about it, it is a dangerous area. One of the calls I got is that the first responders were afraid to immediately go in to give assistance, because they were afraid that they were going to get hurt. So in situations like that, we dispatch police officers for everything else. Why wasn't someone there to secure the scene? Why wasn't someone there to put safety checks in place? I got stopped one day because in my neighborhood because I had an expired inspection sticker, although that I should have got my car inspected. I just didn't want to go somewhere because COVID was really high at the time. I didn't want to sit there, but they took their time out, and not only, and I don't get in trouble. So not only was that officer there, his partner got out of the car, 2 other officers came out, and I was sitting there thinking, and I identified myself. I said, I'm a vice president of the NAACP, and I respect police officers, but there is so much going on. You literally drove past people selling drugs because I saw them, and you turned your car around and you pulled me over. You know what I mean? I saw the people. I'm thinking that that's where they're going, that you couldn't be wanting to bother me over an inspection sticker. But that's what happened. And those are the things that we have to address in our city. In other cities, we have police chiefs and things like that addressing whatever the issue is. And we don't have any of that enforcement.
And it's kind of unfortunate, and I'll just, you get to it, it's kind of unfortunate because I spoke against that fencing, but it's a private company that owns London Oaks.
Right.
I don't blame the first responders. When you have an area that is one way in and one way out, excuse me, one way in and one way out, I always felt that was a dangerous situation. Any residents, something happens, they fence London Oaks in like you said, like a cage.
Yeah.
And that was unfortunate. You're creating more problems by doing that,
Right.
Anyway.
Well, when you take away hope from someone, you take away everything else. So the having one way in and one way out of London Oaks is something that I protested against years ago when it first happened, because I believe then, even as a young woman, that it was a safety issue. There was a situation where a woman was going into labor, and the first responders had no idea that back street had been cut off, and she ended up losing her child because they went the quickest route to get to her. So not only is it a safety issue, but it, like you said, when the first responders come, when police officers come, when whomever comes, you have one way in, one way out, just like a prison rec yard.
Onyx, one thing I know you said that you all are strategizing now. I'm happy to see. I know that there are a lot of grassroots organizations out there. A lot of people have different ideas as to how to combat the problems that we're having with crime enforcement now. But I'm happy to see that you all are going to come together.
Yes.
To create this coalition, because it's going to take everyone working together to come up with a solution for what's taking place in the communities. And it's also going to have to get to a point where somebody's going to have to start talking about who these children are.
Absolutely.
I've been on Facebook and I've seen the kids with the guns, with the money. It's just like nobody is paying attention. We had Chapman here was trying to do community policing, and
it was working.
And they got rid of her. And we got to get back to community policing. Now, I know that they're having a hearing on the new police chief, and I hope that each of you will be actively engaged and involved in helping to make that selection, because we need somebody who understands our communities. We need someone who's not afraid to go into our communities. We need someone who can organize this police department and get them where they need to be, because right now they're just not there. So I'm happy to hear that you all are organizing, that you're coming together. And that was one thing we've been talking about on the radio show since January. I was talking to different people, like in psychology and sociology and social services. All of us need to come together and work as one unit. And like you say, we need to get that sense of community again. And so I'm thankful that that's taking place, because it's going, and I'm just happy with you young people, because you all are making things happen, which is a great thing, so I applaud you for all that you do. And I just look forward to, and if there's any way that we can be involved, please let us know, because we all have to work together in order to secure things in the city of Portsmouth. So I applaud you, Onyx, for all that you're doing.
Thank you so much. And I definitely appreciate that. And I know everyone else does too, because one of the things I think that goes unnoticed is they think that the youth does not want guidance. And that's something that I find that's the furthest thing from the truth. They just don't want someone preaching to them. And none of us did when we were young. They want someone to understand where they're coming from and the struggles that they have. And yes, so thank you so much for that. And I definitely will reach out, and so will people like Daryl Redmond, and because him and I work very closely together on a lot of things.
I've worked with Daryl too, so he helped me with reentry, so I know I know he's
Yeah.
out there. Yes.
Yeah.
I got one point I need to put out here before we go any further, is that we have to do a disclaimer that the views expressed on this radio show amongst the guests and the hosts are not expresses of the radio station,
Right.
but are ours. And so I have to put that out. And then so the other piece also is for those who are out there listening to us and watching this on Facebook Live and YouTube and whatever, if you'd like to hear more messages like this and for us to spread the truth, you can partner with us, and you can or send a donation to Portsmouth Coffee Talk of P.O. Box 7664, Portsmouth, Virginia 23707. So saying that, Onyx, thank you for being on this morning. And the other thing, what caught me when you were talking about the community center and some of the subliminal message of the concrete and the I guess the prison wall that they put around the community, but it goes back in the 40s and 50s for what they did to us with the subliminal messages, putting the whites only or black or colored water fountains. And so that we were subhuman.
Yes.
And so the only power, but we have to, you've called it out, but I think that the only real power we have is the power to vote. Our politicians will go down there a month before it's time to get reelected for city council, whatever. So I think as you as an organizer, if you get it collectively saying, we're going to go down and put somebody out.
Yes. I said that on Facebook on someone's post yesterday. I said it's time that we hold people accountable. It just can't be one or two of us holding people accountable. We get all of these promises, we get all of these things, and then people get in the office and nothing happens. There were promises that were made to me by people that are in office and nothing has happened. I haven't received a call even when I show up. Sometimes they act like they don't even know who I am. They may speak, but they forget about the promises that were made about doing something about this situation in Portsmouth. And not that we even ask for money, we just ask for resources and help, and for even a stance to be taken in many cases. So absolutely, that has to happen, and it can't just be from me. And I don't have a problem with organizing that, and I don't have a problem with holding people accountable. And accountability goes all the way around. Not only does it go to the people that we have in local government, but it also goes to the parents. It also goes to the people in the neighborhood. It goes all the way around. So what we need to do is hold people accountable. Back in the day, and I'm going to say back in my day, there was an accountability that was there. There was a threat that something was going to happen when you didn't hold your children accountable. If your children were doing certain things, there was a responsibility effort, and no one's enforcing anything at this time. And locking people up isn't the way to go, because there is going to just be another group of people more dangerous that rise to take its place. We see that happen all the time. Locally, we even see that happen on national and international scales. If you don't deal with the issues that are being caused today, what's going to happen is just a bigger monster just takes its place when you just try to get those things off the street. So we have to deal with the real issue.
You are so correct. You're so correct, because we need jobs. And I'd like to know, what is the percentage of voter participation, say, in London Oaks? So if I got my voter participation from Rosa from 10, I'm just saying, surmise it, 10%, and I got it up to the 90% and says, I went down to City Hall and said, I got 90%, and we are going to get together and saying, Mr. Joker, or whoever, Miss Joker, whoever it is, and we're going to vote in mass just to put you out if you don't give me what you want. And that's the statistics that you need. And
absolutely.
And to get the folks registered to vote and saying, go down in mass and say, the threat is here, fix my stuff.
That's absolutely true. Not only do we need that, but we need all of Portsmouth residents to understand that this is just not a situation that happens only in London Knowles. It doesn't only happen in Southside. It doesn't only happen in Dale's Home. This is affecting everyone. It happened out Old Town. It'll happen in church, and it can happen everywhere. And one of the things that I can say that I was happy to see is that I've had people of all races reach out to say that they wanted to be a part of getting action done. And that's what it's going to take. It's going to take all of us, because it's able to touch all of us at any time. When you can have 100 shots at a gas station, when you can just be walking down the street and something happens. So while Portsmouth has had gun violence, someone has gotten shot every year in Portsmouth since I've been alive, this is completely different. This is a war zone. It's a state of emergency in Portsmouth. Portsmouth is the most dangerous city in Virginia. The crime rate is over 200 times the average of the state of Virginia, and over 150 times the national average. It is absolutely a state of emergency. And just to have this level of silence is deafening, and it speaks louder than anyone can know.
You know what? I'll make one point here. You know, I retired Army, and sometimes I felt safer in Iraq than I do here in my home state. And
that's a big statement.
That is a sad commentary. And the last one piece to that is I spent 36 years in uniform, and threats to our democracy from abroad. We were always taught that they came from abroad, but we have more threats to democracy from within, and which is even a sadder commentary.
Yes.
So yes, I just had to add that in.
And maybe because there was rules to the engagement when you were in the military. Even when a lot of us was growing up, even if there was violence, there was always rules to the engagement. Right. Not that it was ever okay, but there was just, it was just not so random. You know, when you understand what the rules are, it's a little different, and you know how to deal with those. When there's just no rules and it's lawlessness, it's an added level of fear, because you can't go anywhere. Nothing's off limits. No one's off limits. Women and children are no longer off limits. Innocent bystanders, as we saw in Southside last night, are no longer off limits. Nothing is off limits. Everyone is a casualty, and everyone is at risk.
And you know, Onyx, historically, it's always been the grassroots efforts that have changed things, that caught the attention of the lawmakers. And that's what it's going to have to be. And it could be a different approach as compared to the marches from back in the day. You know, we have all this technology where we can express ourselves and let the leadership know. But it's going to have to start with us, because we see it is what it is with our elected officials. And I don't want to put all of them down, but, you know.
No, it's not all of them.
Right. But, you know, it does take a majority of them to get things moving. So, but we still have to hold them accountable. But at the same time, we have to take action, because these things are still happening, you know, every day. So,
Onyx, do you have any thoughts as to why this increase in gang membership? I know the pandemic is causing a lot of mental situations going on, but it seems as though that has grown tremendously just in a short period of time.
I have a few thoughts about those, and these are my own. One of the things that I can identify with is being from certain areas, you feel thrown away. And when you feel thrown away by the city that you live in, you look for a sense of family. And gangs tend to provide a sense of family, no matter how violent they are. They tell you that they care about you. The other thing, as I alluded to earlier, what else are they going to do? And that sounds cavalier, but my grandmother used to say, an idle mind is the devil's play shop or workshop, right? So I can't go to a community center, and if I do, I have to pay a certain amount of money per child. Well, if I'm a struggling parent and I'm on low income and I'm making minimum wage and I'm barely able to pay my rent, how am I going to send my 3 children to a community center every single day, which is something that was free for us? So it leads to there's just an opportunity for people that want to commit wreak havoc to make people feel like they belong. I've talked to gang members and former gang leaders, and some of them have echoed those same sentiments. They felt like the surrounding people thought that they were nothing. They went to school, they felt like nothing. And then a gang came along and said that they'll be their family. And now I'm in a gang and I'm doing things to be accepted that may not be what I would normally be, but that's why you have things like drive-by shootings, because drive-by shootings, I'll just say it, is very cowardice. Shooting, it should never happen, but to be such a coward that you would go and just shoot randomly into a group of people. If you have I thought that you had an alt with your brother, you address it with your brother. Now, I don't want anyone to get shot. I don't want that to happen at all. So I want to be clear on that, but it's just a lot of cowardice out there, and it's just so much, and it's many more issues than that, but those are the two off the top of my head that I can come up with.
So Onyx, I believe the NAACP is going to play a big role in that, and especially we mentioned earlier that it's going to be important with the new police chief that there's a relationship between NAACP and all the other groups that are combined, because before you had a chief that wouldn't meet with certain members of the NAACP just because. And that might be one of the reasons we are where we are today too. If you're not willing to meet with the grassroots people, so I guess that's going to be one of your first. I think you mentioned that earlier. One to be the first things that the collective group will do. Try to have a relationship with the police department and the sheriff department as well, because they are also part of the law enforcement community. Absolutely,
that definitely needs to happen, and I will say that we did meet with the former police chief, because I want to be completely transparent. There were times where she was open to meeting with us, but then there were times that she wasn't, and we were able to make leeway around use of force laws and actions regarding Portsmouth, Virginia, with the former police chief before the incident. But then there were times, because there was a disagreement or a dislike for certain members of the NAACP, just to be completely honest, that it was a lot more difficult. And we just have to move past petty differences and bickering, because the city of Portsmouth is at stake.
Exactly.
Indeed.
And until we get this under control, I don't care how much you're doing with infrastructure redevelopment, building new homes. People are not going to come here. People are not going to come here and facing the violence that we're having in our streets. And Onyx, when we get time for these kids to go back to school, there have to be mental health counselors in these schools. These kids have been through a pandemic. They've been through seeing all the violence on the streets. Somebody needs to help these kids to address these issues once they get back into the school.
Not only do they need that, but they also need perimeter checks. There is during the city hall meeting, the city council meeting, you had citizens let them know that gang members hide guns right outside of the school in bushes and things like that, so that they can be prepared to wreak havoc. Given that information, what is the city going to do about it? You're actually having citizens coming forward telling you, so you can't have a citizen willing to put their own life at risk to give you information on how to combat an issue, and then you still do nothing.
Exactly.
So we're concerned about what is going to happen when we go back to school. What's going to happen to these Friday night football games? Are we going to have to move them to Saturday? Should we just go ahead and move them to Saturday as a preemptive strike, so that they're in the daytime, and that we know that although violence happens in the day as well, that it is less likely than it is at night under the cover of darkness. So what are we going to do when we give you all of that information to say this is what the gangs are planning, this is what they're saying they're going to do when school opens back up, this is where their guns are, this is where they operate, and we still have nothing. We have citizens providing that type of information, and we still have no action.
Girl, when are you running for office?
I think I'm a lot more effective in this role.
I agree.
Because I can hold people accountable. In this role, and I can speak freely, and I like being able to speak freely, and I like being able to make my money independently, and being able to speak from a place of the people, and fight for the people.
And you're doing an awesome job of it as well.
Thank you.
Because I'm telling you, I know we're talking a lot about violence, but my God,
it's important. I was hoping that we did.
Yes, I mean, I had so many other things I wanted to talk to you about, but this is so much more important.
It is.
I mean, you're doing a lot. You're doing a lot. I appreciate all that you're doing, but we really have to find ways in order to get this under control.
Yes.
Yeah,
And that's organizations, including the NAACP. We have to do more than make a statement about a stance.
Exactly.
So I'm tired of making statements. I'm not making another statement. The only my response was, let's form this coalition, and we got work to do. Because I'm just tired of the statements. What are they doing?
Yes.
Everybody has a statement. We're all against it. What's next?
Yeah, that's good. And before we're about close to the 7 o'clock hour, which we will leave the radio, but continue on Facebook Live. And we're on the Facebook Live section, we'll get more into your book and your brand. And just wanted to say that so we can continue to talk. And when they turn us off the radio, we just keep on talking.
Yes,
but,
yes.
About 7 or a little after 7, they're in the radio section. So thanks all the radio listeners for listening in this morning. And next week, Leah, who do we have next week?
Next week, we have Reverend Javon Fuller.
Okay.
Javon,
I like the way you said that.
And Javon is a young man who came to the Pines Residential Treatment Center when he was 13 years old, and had some difficulties in his life, but he was able to turn his life around. And we're going to talk to him on next week.
Yeah, and he came from Philadelphia. And if he came from Philadelphia, he might be here. Okay, thanks. And so we'll continue on Facebook Live with our special guest, Onyx Hicks, Lakeisha. I wanted to, before we get into that, I know that you're a gun rights advocate. As we talk about the violence and things, I want to get your take on that. I know there have been some instances, and I'll bring up one particular instance where when you were at Chick-fil-A and y'all were protesting what was going on there.
Yes.
You had, and y'all were stopping people from coming in as part of the protest. You had a gentleman come there and pull his gun on you all.
Absolutely.
So you all had to regroup and strap up. Which,
absolutely.
You had that right to open carry and things like that. So I know you feel strongly about that. And people try to sort of mix those things up and run them against each other, the crime and your gun rights and everything like that. But it's room for both of those. You just have to, just be clear about it. They made it so political that, you got one side on this thing, they're going to take my guns, and the other side, well, I have the rights. But mainly, everybody has the right. How do you feel about, I know you're an advocate. So how do you feel about the gun rights in Virginia at this point?
So I'm an advocate for both. I'm an advocate for both gun rights and gun reform, because I think both need to happen. Growing up as a child, I was totally against guns, because most of the people that probably shouldn't have had guns had them, is what I saw, just to be honest. So I thought that guns were bad. I find that a lot of times that they only talk about violence and guns a lot is when you talk about people of color, because there can be 1,000 mass shootings and that may be in the news for a few seconds, but then you have the NRA come out to protect gun rights. When something happens in communities of color, then they don't want us to have guns to protect ourselves. I think that when you meet the standard that you do have a right to open carry, you should not, I think that there should be gun controls and limits around people with mental illness and all types of things. And I think that there should be testing when it goes to that. Do I want to relinquish my guns? No, I don't. But, a lot of times when history shows you, when people give up their guns, a lot of different things happen within the government. So I do want the right to protect myself. I think of not only at the Chick-fil-A, but also at the monument, a gun was also pulled on us. Right. But I had my gun on me at that particular instance, because I had decided that I won't be unarmed again. I've been a gun owner for years now, but I never used to take them or open carry in a protest, because I do have a concealed carry permit, because I never wanted to be the person to bring that type of energy. But what has continuously happened to us in times and things that were not video is that people have threatened us with guns. People have come up to us with guns, and that we had no way of protecting ourselves. So if you have the right to legally carry, I think that you should be able to do that. However, there does need to be a balance there, and there is room for both. And illegal gun ownership, something needs to happen to that. There are cities, like for instance, in Portsmouth, and I'll go back to that. All of these guns are on the street, but where are these kids getting the guns from? Last I checked, you had to be 21 years old to carry a gun. There are people that are under 21 getting a gun. So where are they getting guns? We need to close loopholes. Like if your gun is lost or stolen, you need to report that. But also when they are, and you don't have to do that in the state of Virginia. If you lose your gun or your gun is stolen, you don't have to notify anybody that happens. But there is also a way to track guns. So I believe that when law enforcement, it's a little extra work, but when law enforcement recovers a gun and they are able to track it and see that it belongs to somebody that is not the person that used the gun, they need to knock on their door and say, how did they get this gun from you? That is what they do in other cities in Virginia. And they've noticed a decrease in the amount of guns that were illegally on the street, because I mean, anybody can sell a gun or leave a gun or do all of these things. And if someone stole my gun, I would immediately report it, because I wouldn't want to be linked to anything that would happen with that. So what would be the reason of you not even reporting the fact that somebody stole your gun or that you lost your gun? And again, we have to address how these kids are getting guns, who's buying the guns for these kids, because they have to be registered. You have to go through a lot of registration in order to get a gun. Not only do you have to register with the city, but you have to register, with the state, but you also have to register with the federal government. They know the serial number, they know the information, they know who has these guns, they know where they're registered at. When it turns up in the wrong hands, something needs to happen and people need to be held accountable. Now, should you go to prison for it? Maybe not, but if you got 11 guns that went missing that were in the hands of 11 criminals, then you're doing something, because you didn't lose 11 guns.
Right.
Yeah, I know, and I know that gun owners, have a certain amount of responsibility too. And I remember a report, I think it was last year, that like 70 guns were stolen out of cars, where people leave guns in the cars unlocked. So you got that responsibility there with gun owners. So when you start looking at where these guns are coming from, that might be a small fraction of where a lot of the guns coming from, with gun owners not being as responsible as they should.
And you got to remember, those are the ones that were reported.
Right. And all those ones, like you mentioned, that won't report it out there. But, I don't think they're stealing machine guns. I mean, machine guns are
buying them from somewhere. But
it's the same thing. And a lot of times, and there has to be clarification around there, because a lot of times the media tells you that it's a machine gun, right? And really, these guns are semi-automatic, just like handguns, because machine guns are illegal. Even though you get a gun that looks like it might be a machine gun, more times than not, it is not a machine gun. It's also a semi-automatic. And most crimes actually happen with handguns. When you even think about mass shootings and things like Virginia Tech, they were able to rapidly reload with clips. So we have to make sure that we understand the media propaganda versus what actually is going on in the street, and what type of guns that are being used to commit these crimes. Because those guns like AR-15s and all of those things, while they do look very scary, they still aren't used in the majority of the killings and murders that happen around the country.
Yes.
Well, thank you for that education. I appreciate that.
I'm a gun owner myself.
Mm-hmm.
And have guns in the military. Matter of fact, I was cleaning out some of my military stuff last month, and in the garage I found my last weapons qualification thing. So I could say over the last 30 years, I always shot expert. So I have always been one to say, if you're gonna pull a gun, somebody's got to die today. And if you don't kill me today, I'm like in the Gladiator. I'm gonna catch you in this life or next life, but somebody's gonna die. The person, I just have one question. The person that pulled the gun on you at Chick-fil-A, why was he not arrested later on by the police, for one, for threatening you with a gun? And I'll make the statement that the preface is that we have two Americas, and we have we had two justice systems. Trying to get our justice system back from the old Jim Crow guy that we just left office. But why was he allowed to pull a gun on you in open and threaten your life, and is still walking a day without a felony?
And used his car as a weapon. We can't forget that part because he aimed his car at us. If you saw my live, I had to literally dive out of the way, and so did the other people. And I believe, just as you said, there are two Americas. There are things that one American can get away with that the other America can't. And I'm not a part of Black Lives Matter as an organization, but I do believe in the statement. And one of the things that I always say is all lives matter would never be true until Black Lives Matter too. Okay. And here's the thing is that our equity is not there. And is one of the reasons why I was so happy to take over as the co-director of our Black Party, because of the unequitable treatment that we receive. And one of the things that we have to do is make sure that we're not as vulnerable in this population as we continue to be, and we have to put the right people in office. We have to realize and understand that all skin folk ain't kin folk. Just because they look like us, talk like us, and walk like us doesn't mean that they have our best interests at heart. And we have to hold them just as accountable as we hold everyone else. When somebody that is Caucasian does not do what they're supposed to do, then we stand up and we rally against them. But when somebody that looks like us does not, we are awfully silent. We often give them passes. But I would say that they have a bigger responsibility because they know firsthand what the issue is. They know how unequitable this system is, and they are in a position to make a difference, and they choose to look the other way.
Yes. And I will mention on that particular day, it was mostly women out there.
Mm-hmm. I was out there with her.
Yes, you was.
I saw it with my own eyes. So a lot of truth there, a lot of truth.
Yeah. So the police didn't take a statement and then make charge. Did you go down and try to make charges against them?
They came later that day and got a statement, and they said that they were going to get the camera footage because there was a camera there. So later on that day they came, we gave the information and we gave the statements about what happened, but we never heard anything else about it.
You know, that might be a question to ask the city attorney.
Yeah.
Because that is justice that has not been served. And
you got that right.
And if the city attorney can't do it, then it needs to go to the feds.
Mm-hmm.
And it cannot be lied in state and let it get gotten away. It reminds me, as we're talking about this, I remember it wasn't just recently, I got Karen'd in the commissary by you know what I mean by Karen.
Yeah, that's why I'm like in the commissary, but go ahead, I'm listening.
Yeah, and then so guy came up to me, had his Trump hat on, this and that, and I had my mask on. He had no mask on. This is still, we had the mask mandate. Mm-hmm. It says on there you have to wear your mask. And he come up there talking about some political thing, and then he got up in my face, and I whispered to him and told him, and says, if you don't get up off of me, I'm gonna beat your A right here in this store. Mm-hmm. And so he ran out and called the cops on me. And so when I left the commissary, the police were waiting on me. Mm. So I got Karen. And so they were getting ready to take me away. But I told them, I says, you know what? You can win this battle, but one day I want you to think about this. Think about this. One day you're having a celebration. And it could be Thanksgiving, it could be Christmas, but you got your whole family in there. Mm-hmm. There's going to be this black man that's going to come in there, and it's going to wreak havoc and get justice. I'm not threatening you, but I'm telling you what's going to be your history. You know what he did? He told the cops right then, saying, I think I made a mistake. Grabbed his wife, jumped in his car, and sped out the gate. Mm. Yes, that was the end of my Karen story.
Yeah.
Yes.
But it's so amazing to me how often that happens. Just the threat of violence from a Black person. I mean, and not even a real threat. Just the fact that a whole nother population can say, I feel unsafe. Yeah. And then our life is at jeopardy, because we know what happens when the police officers also show up when it's us. Yeah. So that is just something but we can have real life situations happening. Uh-huh. And whether it's from someone that looks like us or not, even if it's from people that look like us, the response time it's drastically different if they ever come. They will go, and I get that London Oaks is dangerous, but trailer parks is just as dangerous. But you won't see that same reluctance as an EMT to go out a trailer park that you would see them go out London Oaks or South Side. They are just as dangerous, and just as much crime happens there.
Yeah.
But the people that live in those areas look a lot different.
Yeah, and then and I was very careful in the way I worded my language. It's not a threat, but I'm telling you a story that could happen. And that story hit him in his heart. This black man is crazy.
Yes.
Convicted. He's going to do this damage to my family, and if I have to go down there, I'm taking everybody out and the dog.
Oh, no. Not the dog. Leave the dog alone, please.
Yeah, not the dog. We don't want no problems with Peter.
And Colonel, as you talked about, asking her about the guy that pulled the gun, justice is not always equal, like or blind, like they advertise, because Onyx was one of the 19. It was more than 19.
It was we was the only 19 of us got charged. They were strategic. Right.
They got charged behind the statue, the monument, and it was no problem charging you all then, as opposed to a guy actually pulling a gun on ladies that are protesting, that are rightfully protesting.
Not only was it no problem charging us, it was no problem with them usurping the law. It was no problem with them trying to remove the prosecutor. It was no problem with them trumping up charges. It was no problem with us being the first activists in the history of the country to ever be charged with conspiracy to commit a felony, and the felony then be injuring a monument. That had never happened. They tried to make an example out of us. During that entire process, we were being followed, and we had to go to the police department that we knew that was coming against us and trying to destroy us to ask for help. So that felt, the way that felt, and as an activist, I had firsthand experience of some of the things that I felt about how it feels to have charges made up and trumped up against you, how it feels to have a system just come against you and try to destroy you. That literally could have destroyed my entire life. It could have destroyed my livelihood, my ability to vote, my ability to bear arms. I'm an executive at a company now, but they were holding off on giving me that role because of the situation at hand and the amount of clearance and access that I needed to have. And I couldn't have it if I was a felon. That could have completely destroyed my life. And I get that people were upset, but to use the law to violate the law is something that we cannot allow. And I am glad. It was a harrowing time for me, and I was stressed out. I ain't gonna lie. When I heard my name read on the news, I almost fainted. I thought it wasn't real till people called me. So I was scared. But at the end of the day, I'm glad it was the people that it was, because how many times has that happened to people? And if it wasn't high profile people, if it wasn't a state senator, if it wasn't the NAACP president and the NAACP vice presidents, if it wasn't attorneys, if it wasn't those type of people that they were coming out of, that case would have never gotten the coverage that it got, and they would have never paid the attention that they paid to it. Local judges wouldn't have recused themselves, and we ended up ultimately getting a judge from the state Supreme Court that had no dealings in Portsmouth and really no dog in the fight and was just there to deliver justice. So I believe in our situation that even though the charges were trumped up and they tried to destroy us and silence us, that justice did work the way that it was supposed to. But how often does that happen? It actually had to be a perfect storm of people that refused to be silenced, and people with credibility, people with respect, and people that had skin in the game.
Exactly.
Yeah, and that's another example where elections matter, because properly got into the Commonwealth Attorney's hands, which is sort of, she did the right thing. Where it should have been in her hands in the beginning. How do you get around charging anybody and going around the Commonwealth Attorney? Which is what they tried to do.
Yeah, so, and then they tried to kick her off the case. Don't forget that part. They lied and said she was there. They tried to completely kick her off the case because they didn't want her to have any part in it. So not only did they try to destroy us, but they tried to destroy somebody that wasn't even there and everyone's credibility.
Right. But you know what? That's only half justice. Half justice. That same police officer, lieutenant, is still on the force. Why is he still on the force? And we've had members of city council talked about it when they were running, that they were going to look into it and do something. They ain't said a thing as soon as they got elected. It's accountability. It's accountability.
Absolutely. Accountability. You're absolutely right.
Yes.
And I wish I had an answer to that question, other than the fact that sometimes people are given a lot more chances than others.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Well, thanks a lot. We had to give time. Let me jump in. We had to give time to this very important topic, but I want to get into Onyx, a lot of the things that she's doing and also her book. So, Leo, you want to lead off with talking about
Onyx,
Onyx and
your book, Party of One. Every young girl needs to read that book.
Thank you.
There's some things from there, because that's self-love. That self-love is so important. If you have that self-love, you're not going to let anything else come into your life that doesn't need to be there. So share with us a little bit about Party of One. I've been enjoying the little excerpts that I've been reading. Okay.
Thank you. So that book came about because it first came about because of me as a woman, but then as I grew and I learned that men struggle with self-love as well. Like as a little girl, the first thing that you're given is a doll, right? And you're told to love the doll and protect the doll. And I believe as women, we're taught to give our power away immediately. And then further, as a community of color, we are always taught to hide our emotions, to suppress our emotions, to assimilate. And when you do those type of things, you are constantly looking for outside validation. But when you look for outside validation, you're never fulfilled, you're never whole, and you leave yourself up to be taken advantage of and always running in circles. So I went on this self-love journey, and I felt like people weren't being authentic with what they were telling me to do. And they act like it was easier than what it was, that you just wake up one day, you say, I'm gonna love myself. But no, I was mad at people. I was hurt. And as you go through these layers, and it's still, and it's an ongoing process. It never really ends. You just get better and better at it. But as you start peeling back these layers, you're dealing with hurt, you're dealing with pain, you're dealing with frustration, you're dealing with betrayal. And then you're dealing with the fact that you betrayed yourself in so many instances because you didn't understand your own worth, your own value. And no matter how respected you were. And that's something that I think that I know that I wanted to talk about, because people wouldn't think that I struggle with self-love and self-worth and self-value, because I was always pretty accomplished. I accomplished just about every goal I ever set out to have in life. From everything that I wanted to do, I was able to do it, but I did it out of a people-pleasing mentality. I did it because I wanted somebody else to give me an atta girl. I did it because I wanted somebody else to tell me I was good enough. I did it because I wanted somebody else to tell me I was worthy enough, and I was never fulfilled. So I continued to chase things and ring after ring after ring, because I was never fulfilled, because I didn't love me and I didn't know what I want. Even my first home that I bought because people told me that was the American dream, and your house is supposed to be this big. You're supposed to drive this kind of car. Forget about the things I wanted as a little girl. I did what people told me I was supposed to do. And that meant success, that meant value, and that meant that you were good. And I was still empty inside. I looked great. I smiled. I accomplished things. But guess what? On the inside, there was a hole there until I learned to love myself. And I just continued to replace that hole with different things. And that's where the book came from. And during the time with the monument, I really buckled down and wrote most of the book during that journey, because I had to really go within inside myself, because it's people that we would have thought that would have supported us and stood with us that didn't. We received attacks from all ends. It was times that I just had to go radio silent and go within and remember who I was and look myself in the mirror and tell myself that I am worthy. I had to tell myself that I love me, that I am worth all of the effort, that I'm worth it. I always have been and I always will be. And I had to go back and relearn the things that I had learned previously, because it was another level. It was something I had never experienced, and I began to get afraid, and I wanted to revert to having somebody else tell me it was going to be okay. But I had to fight my way out of that situation. And if I didn't love myself, I think that I would have broke.
And I think that's so important, because we have so many people now who live daily for the number of likes they get on Facebook.
Yes.
You know, the number of likes. And if they don't get those likes, then they start doubting themselves, you know. So they have to get to a point of realizing that you have to feel good with who you are.
Yes.
And where you are in life. So it is a good read. It's a good read. And I encourage, you can get it on Amazon for $20. So go to Amazon and purchase the book. And and just look at the ways in which we do wear the mask. James Baldwin said we wear a mask. We wear a mask
We do.
to cover up those things that we don't want people to know. And
right.
so I appreciate you for your party of one.
Thank you.
I also want to hear more about our Black Party. When did this start? What was the beginning, you know?
So our Black Party started a few years ago. It was created by Sean Puff Daddy Combs, P. Diddy, nickname Love now. It was created by him out of the need for there to be a party to represent our interests and solely our interests. When you think about it, we have the Democratic Party, we have the Republican Party, but at the end of the day, if we're honest, none of them really ever completely represent our interests. We vote Democratic solely all the time. Most of us do. People ask me what I am. I say that I am Onyx. I'm going to vote for whoever's going to get the job done. But we don't have a voting block like so many other communities. Other communities are able to come together and they're able to demand justice. We are fractured in many areas. And so our Black Party came out as a need to have a voice, as a need, from the need, to have a voice that represents us, where we can have a voting block, where we can, as one group of people, with all of the groups and grassroots efforts coalesced inside of that to say, this is what we want, because we're about the equity and upliftment and empowerment of Black people. And again, to make, to take away their ability to victimize us so freely and so carelessly and so recklessly all the time without any regard. Because even if you think about the thing, we're still waiting. They won't even pass an anti-lynching bill.
I'm telling you, that's for sure.
We can't even get an anti-lynching bill passed.
Thank you.
We can't even get, it's so many things. We can't get a voting rights, the John Lewis Voting Rights Act. We can't get that passed. And all of the time, and that's another thing, we're tired of lip service. We're tired of you saying, this is what we're going to do, because if this is what we know that our vote matters as Black people, right? But I don't think that we understand the true power that we have, because we often decide who's going to be in office. If we don't show up and vote, guess what? They're not going to win. And if we do show up and vote, they are going to win. We turned out for Biden. We didn't turn out for Hillary. There was a different result. We turned out for Obama. He was untouchable, because quite simply, we're the difference makers. And when we understand our power as difference makers, that's why they come to us when it's time to vote. And they kiss our babies and they give us hugs and they say, woo, 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 there. We're sorry this happened to you. Vote for us. And we're going to make something happen. And then it becomes, we'll see what we do. We can't get an executive order for us, but everybody else can get an executive order for them. And I'm okay with everybody else getting executive orders. But what about us? What about the group of people that everyone always attaches their journey to? What about the group of people that they always call on and anytime they want a movement to be moved? Everyone else, anytime that there's a struggle, they attach their narrative to the struggle of the civil rights movement, which has not ended. And I don't know why people think it has, because we're still fighting for basic equity and basic understanding. So the reason why is because we have not come together into one group to be able to get the job done. And that does not mean that the other groups cannot exist. We're not trying to stump out or decrease or remove any group, because we need us all. What we want to do as our Black Party is to be able to have a voting block where we can speak together on behalf of the issues. And it started out nationally. And now we are bringing on each states. And Virginia was just brought on this year as a new state. And they reached out to me, Dr. West Bellamy. And as we also know, Stephanie Morales is also on the national board for our Black Party. And they reached out to me because they've seen some of the work. I do a lot of work behind the scenes. And they felt like that I would be a good fit for it. And I was more than happy to lend my voice, my talent, and my abilities to mobilize and get things done to this party, because we need it.
Okay. Wow. And let's see now. Oh, you got so much going on. We Up Entertainment. What is We Up Entertainment?
So We Up Entertainment is not mine. We Up Entertainment is a management firm of one of my friends. And I've just been supporting them. I have a single coming out that they are actually going to put on an event and host for me. It's not my single. Her name is Monica P. It's her 11th single.
Right.
She performed at my album release party, at my book release party for me. And then she asked me if I would rap on her single. And, back in the day, a long time ago, I was a pretty decent rapper. So it's a very fun single. It's a dance track, and we got together and we were able to do that. And she put it on this platform called Reverb Nation that has over 3.5 million independent artists. She put it up there at 7 p.m. One night we woke up the next morning, we were #1. And I believe that we're about number 70 internationally at this point. It's been getting a lot of play, pick up for radio play and things of that nature. So it's just a fun event. But We Up Entertainment is the group by one of my really, really, really dear friends. And I'm not sure if they want me to announce who the owner is. So I won't say who the owner is, but y'all all know her.
Yes. Okay. All right.
Hey, Onyx, I just wanted to say one thing about your book. It's a good read, but it's also an opportunity to participate. You know, I've seen books like this before where you can go through each chapter, and at the end of each chapter, you can also write things down that are important to you in your life.
Yes.
Concerning whatever the subject of that particular chapter was. And I think that participation is good for those people. And it's kind of therapeutic for anybody reading that book. And that's what I appreciated about it. But what about the Onyx Effects? So that's the brand that has a lot of things under it, the I Am Onyx. And a lot of people don't know that, can't remember when it was last year that one of Ali's wives came to Portsmouth. And her on your show, you interviewed her on the show, but she was at a event here in Portsmouth and Virginia Beach, I believe.
Yes.
And several other people on your I Am Onyx show, which is under the brand of the Onyx Effect. And what else do you have on, going under that? Quite a few things.
So that's the TV show. And I also have the radio show that's called the OD. The OD stands for the overdose. And we named it that because we want people to overdose on positivity. So many overdose has such a negative connotation that we want people to overdose on the good things about life. We do self-help things. We talk about self-love. We talk about relationships. We also do interviews on that show. And I do that show with Amira Bethea.
Yes. And how did that combination come together? You and Amira. How did that happen?
So me and Amira's friendship is a very funny story. Years ago, I was working Pride. And Amira was also working Pride. She was in charge of getting entertainment. She had gotten Jussie Smollett to come. Well, a mutual acquaintance of ours had told me to go over to Amira and ask Amira, how can I help her? I had at that point thought that that was already cleared with Amira and that she knew I was coming to ask her. We all know and love Amira, but she is one of the realest people I ever met. And she looked at me like I was completely insane. And she was wondering why did this, and I felt like she was completely rude. We both have big personalities, but what I'm glad about is that I didn't react to her. I just was like, you know what? I just decided I was never going to talk to her ever again in my life. But we began to move in the same circles. And I had a birthday party maybe about 6 months later, and she came to my birthday party and she walked up to me and she said, "Hey, Onyx, I thought that someone sent you to cause an issue. So I want to apologize to you about the way that I treated you. And will you accept my apology?" And I did. And we ended up that night, we talked maybe about 3 hours at my birthday party. Like we didn't separate, and we've pretty much been inseparable ever since. We just became really, really good friends and just someone that each other could rely on.
Yes. It's a good combination too.
Yes.
It's a really good combination.
Yeah.
And
then I was just like, Amira, you want to join my show? She was like, yeah. And I was like, okay, so it's our show now.
You also made some pretty funny TikTok videos.
Yes, indeed. But can you tell people how they can see your show? How they can...
Absolutely. So the television show, The Onyx Effect, comes on Sky 4 TV at 1 a.m. on Sunday mornings. After it airs on Sky 4 TV, then it goes immediately to my YouTube channel, which is The Onyx Effect. And we are just starting season 3. So we'll have new shows starting this weekend.
Good, great. Make sure I tune in. But Onyx, you have been quite a busy person. For such a young lady.
Thank you.
You've done so much, and I appreciate all that you're doing. And I'm just looking forward to bigger and better things coming from you and your involvement. And I really want to know if there are ways in which we can help in any way, because our purpose here on the Coffee Talk is to make sure that we get the correct information out to the community. You know, we're not here to attack. We're not here to say who's right, who's wrong, but just that the community get the information, and so that they can become proactive. And we
Absolutely.
the community proactive. So I'm just thankful to you for all that you're doing. And I've just seen you in many hats at the monument, at Chick-fil-A, you know, speaking at emceeing programs, and just being involved in so much. And I just appreciate all that you're doing.
Well, thank you so much for saying that. And it means so much to me when my elders and those that came before me do that. I really appreciate all of you. I adore Costello. When I received when I made the announcement of our Black Party, I called her immediately because I wanted her counsel and her guidance, because she's such an amazing person and leader in our community. I adore you as well, Miss Leah, and I respect both of you gentlemen tremendously. Miss Leah, you everywhere, so you always show up. I be protesting and I look and there you go. So, you know, but what I can do is make sure that I'm a lot more intentional about making sure that I share information with you guys about what's going on, so that you can help get the information out there.
And you know, and the thing I like about you, Onyx, is that you don't dismiss the elders.
Absolutely not. I was raised by my grandmother.
Yeah. You know, we have to work together. We can't say the elders over here and the young folks over here. We have to come together. We have to bring that stuff that we've got, the baggage we have had with us. We bring that in with us as well, and then you all come in and we just pull it all together. We work together as a team, you know.
Yes, ma'am.
Not one person knowing more than the other, but everybody working together is so important. And
except y'all do know more than us, and I receive that, and I understand that. I think that what we bring a lot of time is technology, energy, and maybe new ideas. But you've already been down the road. You've seen things that we haven't seen. You understand things that we might not understand. You have connections that we don't have. You've been in the game a lot longer than we have, and I honor and respect that. My grandmother raised me, and I don't know if that's where it comes from, but I am here because my elders came before me, and I'll never forget that. And I will always acknowledge and respect my elders. You will never, I don't care how much I disagree with an elder. Now, one thing you'll never catch me doing is being disrespectful to none of my elders. They can yell at me. I have been cussed out by an elder for something I didn't do, and I stood there and took it because I'm like, hey, you got it. I'm not gonna say nothing. Okay, I'll wear that. I'll do that. And later they came back and apologized, but I think they came back and apologized because I'm never just going to be disrespectful to my elders because I have too much respect for you.
Right.
You know, we had elders too, and we stand on their shoulders.
Oh, we do. That's for sure.
Passing it down and hoping from generation to generation, it just keeps going.
And that's what's missing.
We have a responsibility as elders to be receptive to the new ideas. A lot of times we get a clash there as well with some elders. But we have to be receptive, and I agree with Leah wholeheartedly that we have to work together and respect each other.
Absolutely.
And when those arguments come, we'll leave it right there, you know.
Yes.
Exactly.
And move on.
And move on to the next project.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Because we're not going to always agree, but the respect has to be there.
Exactly.
Colonel, as we wind down, you want to step in there? You have some comments?
Well, you know what, Onyx, it's been a pleasure talking to you. It's actually it's a breath of fresh air that I see the youth of America. And I call anybody that's a day younger than I.
I'll take it.
And you're heading in the right direction. I see a very bright future for you.
Thank you.
You know, as when you know, the title of community organizer was imparted on you, I think about how Barack started.
That's
and
right.
I'd like to see you in elective office.
People keep telling me that.
and don't close off that door.
Okay.
Because we could use you out there.
That's true. That's very true.
We need somebody that's going to get something done and just not going to placate us. And so that is my thought for the day.
And
I will take that under advisement.
Colonel, great thought, great thought.
Thank you.
And I'll just add, you know, sometimes I guess it's good for people to have elected office, but sometimes in elected office, you just have one vote. And when you're out there on the grassroots trail, you have a lot of votes, you know, that you can influence. So some people, you know, that lane is the best lane for them. You know, that's just my opinion, you know, but, you know, never overlook, you know, the opportunity if it comes to be in elected office, but a lot of the work starts at the grassroots, you know, and you know, that's all I had to say about that.
Grassroots is the best roots.
It is.
Yeah, about it. And we want to thank you for coming on this morning, and we won't hold you any longer. And we want to continue to be an inspiration to your story is great, you know, coming up from London Oaks to coming through Norcom and taking each one of those experiences and using them in your adult life. You know, it's what formed you to the point where you are today. And we really appreciate that. And that should be an inspiration to all the other younger students and children coming up, that take all those experiences at a young age and take it in and use it, you know, throughout life. So again, we appreciate you coming. And I don't know if everybody made their last comments.
But James, one thing, Onyx, I would love it if you could get out here and talk to these young people, especially young females.
Yes.
They need to hear your story. They need to hear your voice, you know, and we have to get more involved with these young people. And I think that if you could get out there, I mean, I think you can get out there. I think you can make a difference in their lives. I really do.
I believe I could too. Yeah, thank you for saying that, Miss Leah. It's funny because I spoke to a lot of the young kids in Norfolk, but for some reason Portsmouth is a little different in the way that we operate.
High school. I need you at all the high schools. We need to find a way to get a platform.
I'm willing. I'm more than willing.
And talk to these children.
Yes.
Because they need to hear your story, you know, and they need to know what is out there, what is open for them, you know. And I just think that you can just give that information. Now, I'm going to work on that because I really would like to see if you're available to get.
I would love to do it, and I will make time for it.
I thank you so very much.
And Leah, it's good you said that, because, you know, remember we had Buster Nelson on, who was a Norcom alum, and he said use him. He wants to come back and talk to the youth, and it just has to be something that we can bring these people back that are willing.
Exactly.
And influence and talk to us.
My green screen went out, but anyway, go ahead.
Onyx, yeah, you turn into a ghost there. So we really need to put, maybe it's going to be on Portsmouth Coffee Talk to put something together.
Yeah, we need to work. We really need to come together and work on that, you know, because I think that, and I do feel as though if a woman can change a man's attitude, okay, if we get these young girls not accepting some of the things that these guys are bringing to the table, I think it can make a difference, not only with the young girls, but with the guys as well.
Absolutely.
So I think we really need to work on that. I'm going to be with you, okay?
Yes, ma'am, and I'm going to be available.
Good, thank you.
Thank you, and thank you so much for having me on the show. It was both an honor and a privilege to be here with you today.
Okay.
Well, thank you. And again, Portsmouth Coffee Talk is here for our voice,
our community,
and our future.
And we thank everybody for listening, and we'll see you next Monday morning. God bless you.
God bless, Onyx. So thank you so very much.
Thank you.
Okay.
You're welcome.
You can go out now. Let me stop the recording. Stop it.
Good morning.